When it's destiny, you'll feel it. Carl Jung explains why. As Carl Jung once said, synchronicity is an ever-present reality for those who have eyes to see. Have you ever met someone and felt an unexplainable pull, as if the universe whispered, "This moment was meant to happen"? In today's episode on spiritual wisdom, we explore how destiny doesn't shout. It whispers through feelings, signs, and perfectly timed encounters. If you've ever wondered whether a certain person, opportunity, or coincidence was part of a bigger plan, you're not alone. Drop a comment below. Have you ever felt something was meant to be? We'd love to hear your story. And remember, every connection has meaning, especially when it aligns with your soul's journey. 1. Destiny feels aligned, not forced. When someone is truly meant for you, the connection won't feel forced or confusing. It will feel like alignment, like a missing piece sliding effortlessly into place. This sensation is deeper than logic, more powerful than explanation, and often impossible to ignore. Carl Jung, a pioneer in understanding the unconscious, believed that these people don't enter our lives by chance. They are mirrors of our hidden desires, unmet needs, and inner growth. He called these encounters synchronicities, meaningful coincidences that reflect an invisible order behind what we think is randomness. In the journey of spiritual awakening, these moments are signs that your soul is speaking louder than your mind. You're not imagining the bond. You're recognizing something familiar in another soul, something that resonates with your truth and pulls you into alignment with your higher path. This connection is not limited to romantic love. It spans across friendships, mentorships, collaborations, even brief encounters that leave a lifelong impact. These are not random events, but soul contracts, spiritual assignments woven into your journey long before you were aware of them. In modern life, where relationships are often shallow and transactional, these destined connections feel sacred. They challenge you, awaken dormant parts of your spirit, and remind you of who you truly are beneath the masks. When you meet someone who stirs something deep inside, who reflects your wounds, your wisdom, or your worth, that's a sign of a deeper spiritual intelligence at play. Your unconscious, guided by unseen forces, is drawing this person to you not to complete you, but to catalyze your growth. Jung's wisdom teaches us to look beyond surface attraction and into symbolic meaning. The people who come into our lives at the right time are often delivering spiritual messages we need to hear. A friend who appears when you're lost. A mentor who sees your potential before you do. A partner who challenges your old patterns. These synchronicities are not coincidences. They are confirmations. Your energy called, and the universe responded. In the realm of spirituality, nothing is ever truly random. Everything has purpose, even the pain, even the timing. This is why trust is essential. You must trust the pull, the pattern, the path that unfolds when you stop forcing connections and start honoring the ones that feel divinely guided. So when destiny is real, it won't ask you to chase. It won't drain you. It will ground you. It will reflect your light and your shadow with equal intensity. The connection will feel like coming home, not because it's easy, but because it's true. You'll feel it in your body, in your spirit, in the silence between words. And when you do, lean in with openness and self-awareness. Recognize that you are not just meeting a person. You are meeting a mirror, one that reveals the depth of your inner world one that calls you into the next chapter of your spiritual awakening. Comment below. I trust the timing of my life. If you believe that true destiny never feels forced, it simply flows. 2. Relationships reflect your inner state. Carl Jung taught that relationships are never accidents. They are projections of the unconscious, mirrors that reveal the hidden truths we haven't yet dared to face. When you consistently attract people who drain you, disrespect you, or manipulate your emotions, that isn't just misfortune, it's a message. It's your inner world speaking through the outer world, showing you that there are unhealed wounds, suppressed beliefs, and unresolved pain living beneath the surface of your awareness. And until those parts of you are acknowledged, you will continue to meet them not as concepts in a book, but as real people with real impact on your heart, your peace, and your self-worth. The truth is, relationships reflect your inner state with precision, and the moment you ask yourself, what part of me is calling in this dynamic, is the moment you begin your journey of spiritual development. Every relationship is a spiritual assignment. The ones that break you are not enemies. They are messengers. They come to awaken you to the parts of yourself you've forgotten, rejected, or abandoned. If you keep attracting emotionally unavailable people, perhaps there's a part of you that is still afraid of true intimacy. If you find yourself constantly giving too much, maybe you've been taught that love must be earned through sacrifice. These patterns aren't random. They are rooted in your unconscious beliefs, shaped by your past and projected onto your present. But spirituality invites you to become aware of this, to stop blaming others and start investigating the deeper story that's unfolding beneath your relationships. And when you dare to look within, not with shame, but with compassion, you reclaim your power. Spirituality is not about escaping pain, it's about transforming it. And relationships are where this transformation happens in real time. They expose your deepest fears, but also your highest potential. They challenge your boundaries, but also call forth your truth. They wound you, yes, but they also reveal the places where love is needed most. The person who triggers you is pointing to your unhealed trauma. The one who abandons you is showing you where you still abandon yourself. And the one who sees your light, they are a reflection of the love you've begun to remember. In this way, spiritual development is not something you do in isolation. It happens in the mirror of another. It happens in every yes you give to yourself and every no you finally speak to what no longer honors your soul. The path forward is not about changing the world around you. It's about changing the relationship you have with yourself. Because once you do, the world adjusts accordingly. You'll begin to attract people who respect your boundaries, honor your growth, and meet you where you are not, because they've changed, but because you have. As your inner world rises in vibration, your outer world reflects it. And suddenly, what once felt like chaos begins to feel like clarity. What once felt like punishment begins to feel like purpose. And what once felt like confusion becomes a call to awaken. This is the invisible architecture of spirituality. This is how relationships become sacred ground for spiritual development. 3. Real connections don't demand self-betrayal. Real connections never ask you to abandon yourself. They meet you where your soul already stands, whole and unhidden. The people who are truly aligned with your destiny won't force you to perform or dim your light. They won't demand that you prove your worth or betray your inner truth just to feel loved. Instead, they offer you something far more sacred: peace. There's no drama, no games, no constant wondering where you stand. As Carl Jung beautifully explained through the lens of spiritual wisdom, this is the process of individuation, the intelligent unfolding of your entire being by integrating every part of yourself, both shadow and light. In the presence of the right person, you are not fragmented or filtered. You are simply allowed to be, fully and freely. These soul-aligned relationships don't confuse your nervous system. They calm it. They don't rush your growth. They hold space for it. They don't spark anxiety. They awaken remembrance. When it's destiny, you'll feel it not through intensity or chaos, but through the gentle clarity of alignment. It's in the way conversations flow effortlessly, in how silence feels safe, and in how your heart no longer feels the need to armor itself. You begin to realize that real love, real resonance, doesn't provoke a fight-or-flight response. It invites stillness. Jung once said, "Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakes." In destined connections, you stop dreaming of being chosen and start awakening to the truth that you were never meant to hide. You stop chasing completion in others because they reflect back the truth that you are already whole. They don't fill a void. They remind you there never was one. This is intelligence in its purest spiritual form. The awareness that true love is not found in validation, but in resonance. Destiny doesn't knock with noise. It moves in subtle, undeniable ways. A look, a word, a moment of synchronicity that lands so deeply, it feels like time pauses. You don't feel pressured. You feel pulled. You're not performing. You're present. And the more spiritually awake you become, the more you start to trust this quiet knowing. You begin to see that when someone is meant for your path, the connection unfolds naturally, without force or fear. It mirrors back the parts of you that are ready to be seen, not judged. It gives you room to breathe without questioning your worth. It doesn't make you question your identity. It anchors you deeper in it. In that space, love becomes sacred, not transactional. And destiny becomes not just a meeting of two people, but a recognition of two souls remembering who they truly are. Real connections never require you to abandon yourself. If you're ready to honor your truth and embrace your destiny, comment below. I choose authenticity, and let the journey begin. 4. Patterns repeat until you become aware. Repetitive relationship struggles aren't accidents. They're spiritual messengers in disguise, guiding you toward a deeper truth buried within. When the same emotional patterns keep surfacing, whether it's heartbreak, betrayal, abandonment, or self-sabotage, it's not life being cruel. It's your unconscious mind trying to wake you up. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." This isn't just psychological insight. It's a spiritual awakening in motion. Life doesn't repeat patterns to punish you. It repeats them to teach you, to show you what you haven't yet healed, to urge you to confront the inner stories you've been carrying for far too long. Every repeating cycle is a mirror, reflecting back the parts of you still waiting to be seen, loved, and understood. When you finally pause and ask, "What is this experience trying to show me about myself?" you begin to reclaim your spiritual power. You shift from being a passive victim of your fate to an awakened co-creator of your destiny. These patterns are rooted in unconscious wounds, abandonment, rejection, shame, or fear that were never fully processed. They don't just vanish with time. They hide in your choices, your emotional reactions, your attractions, and the energy you emit. Spirituality teaches that the outer world reflects the inner state. And until the energy behind your decisions is healed, life will continue to place you in situations that force you to confront your deepest shadows. A spiritual awakening doesn't always come through light. It often arrives through pain, repeating itself until your awareness is sharp enough to see it not as suffering, but as transformation. In modern life, we're quick to label toxic patterns as bad luck or blame others for our experiences. But spiritual wisdom asks you to turn inward and take responsibility for what you're attracting, tolerating, and repeating. Healing requires deep intelligence, not intellectual intelligence, but emotional and spiritual intelligence. It requires you to sit with your pain, to trace it back to its root, and to choose differently even when it's uncomfortable. Spiritual growth is not linear, and breaking a pattern is not a single decision. It's a series of courageous moments where you honor your truth over your trauma. As you become more conscious, you stop participating in relationships that drain you, and you start magnetizing ones that mirror your healing, not your wounds. You begin to recognize red flags without romanticizing them. You stop seeing chaos as passion and start craving peace as a sign of alignment. The old story no longer feels like home because you're no longer the same person who wrote it. This is the turning point, when patterns no longer pull you back but propel you forward. When pain no longer repeats but teaches. And when destiny is no longer something you wait for, but something you remember, reclaim, and rewrite through the clarity of your spiritual awakening. 5. Your intuition always knows. The mind has a way of clinging to logic, even when your spirit is begging for freedom. It will convince you to stay in situations that chip away at your peace, label dysfunction as normal, and dress up chaos as passion. But no matter how much the mind rationalizes, your intuition never lies. That subtle sense of discomfort, the tension in your chest, the unease that lingers long after the conversation ends, these are not coincidences. They are messages from your soul saying, "This is not your path." In the journey of spirituality and spiritual development, one of the most powerful forms of self-awareness is learning to trust what you feel, even when it contradicts what you think. Carl Jung, the father of analytical psychology, believed that what we encounter in life is rarely random to every person. Every experience is a mirror of something deeper within. So when your body reacts before your brain can reason, it's not weakness, it's wisdom. It's your higher self trying to guide you toward alignment. True alignment doesn't come with confusion, emotional whiplash, or constant questioning. It comes with clarity. You won't have to force it, prove it, or chase it. When something is meant for you, it flows with ease. You feel safe. You feel seen. And above all, you feel at peace. Peace is the soul's recognition of truth. That's how you know you're in the right place with the right people, on the right path, not because it's always easy, but because your inner world feels calm, even when the outer world is uncertain. Many people mistake intensity for intimacy, chaos for connection. But spirituality teaches you to discern the difference. You don't need to fight to be loved. You don't need to suffer to grow. You don't need to abandon yourself to be chosen. The longer you ignore your inner knowing, the louder the discomfort becomes. It's a sacred discomfort, a spiritual alarm clock alerting you to misalignment. The anxiety you feel isn't always something to fix. Sometimes it's something to listen to. Your nervous system is speaking in a language older than words, a language your soul understands well. And when you begin to truly trust your intuition, you'll stop needing signs, because you'll already know. You'll recognize the energy that drains you, the environments that shrink you, and the people who pull you out of alignment with your highest self. That recognition is not judgment, it's discernment. It's spiritual intelligence in motion. So as you walk your path, listen more to how something feels rather than how it looks. Don't settle for a love that exhausts you. Don't stay in rooms that silence you. Don't justify situations that make you question your worth. Spiritual development is not just about rising into light. It's about learning when to walk away from what dims you. Let your peace be your guide. Let your body be your compass. Let your intuition be the quiet, steady voice you finally choose to trust. Because when it's destiny, you won't have to chase it. You'll feel it, and it will feel like home. If this message about intuition and destiny resonates with you, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell. Your path to deeper spiritual wisdom and inner clarity continues with every step you take. 6. Not all. Deep connections are forever. Not everyone who enters your life is meant to stay. Some are simply meant to wake something within you. Carl Jung, a pioneer of spiritual wisdom, taught that people often appear not by chance, but by unconscious design, to reflect back to you what is hidden deep inside. Their role may be brief, but the impact can be life-altering. They don't arrive to complete you, but to challenge you, to stir your soul, and to help you confront parts of yourself that you've long buried. These connections are not always easy. They might come wrapped in conflict, confusion, or even heartbreak, but that's because their true purpose is to break down old patterns and initiate healing. In spiritual awakening, the question is never, will they stay? But rather, what truth are they revealing to me right now? That's the essence of intelligence on the spiritual path, not attaching to people, but recognizing the lesson they bring. Sometimes, these people enter during times of transition, when your soul is quietly asking for growth, not comfort. You may feel an intense pull, a deep recognition that seems beyond logic, and that's because your energy recognizes theirs. Jung called it synchronicity, a meaningful coincidence that points to a higher order. You're not imagining it. There is a reason you crossed paths. But the universe doesn't always pair you with people who stay forever. It pairs you with those who awaken you, and that's far more sacred. You were not meant to possess them. You were meant to evolve through them. And the most spiritually intelligent thing you can do is to stop asking why they left and start asking why they came. If you look closely, every connection teaches you something essential about your own becoming. One may mirror your wounds, another may reflect your potential. Some may come to show you how far you've strayed from yourself, while others remind you of the love you forgot you deserved. Don't measure the value of a connection by its duration, but by its depth, by how much it shifted your awareness. True spiritual wisdom isn't found in holding on. It's found in letting go with grace, in understanding that the lesson is often more important than the person. And when it's destiny, you won't have to chase it. You'll feel it in the alignment, in the peace, in the quiet recognition that this encounter, however fleeting, was a turning point in your evolution. 7. Love isn't about completion. It's about wholeness. Love isn't something that comes to complete you. It's something that meets you when you are already whole. According to Carl Jung's spiritual wisdom, what you attract into your life is never random. It's deeply aligned with the energy you are emotionally and spiritually ready to sustain. You don't receive love because you desperately need it. You receive it when your inner world is prepared to hold it without clinging, controlling, or collapsing. You attract what your soul is ready to mirror. And that's why relationships should never be about fixing the broken pieces in you. They should reflect the love, the wholeness, the self-awareness you've already cultivated within. Real love flows naturally from a place of emotional maturity and grounded self-respect. It doesn't come to rescue you from your loneliness. It arrives because you've already made peace with yourself in solitude. When two people meet without the burden of expectation, when each person is rooted in their own sense of purpose and inner strength, love becomes an extension, not a remedy. A healthy relationship is not a crutch for your pain, but a mirror for your growth. If you enter love hoping someone else will fix you, heal your past, or make you feel whole, you've mistaken connection for salvation. And salvation doesn't come from another person. It's a result of deep spiritual awakening, of confronting your patterns and choosing not to bleed on people who didn't cut you. You must understand that healthy love doesn't seek to fill a void. It expands what's already alive inside of you. Two emotionally whole people in love don't complete each other. They walk side by side, in reverence, in respect, honoring each other's sovereignty. This is where modern love often falls apart. We've been taught to chase the rush, the thrill, the person who makes us feel butterflies. But we haven't been taught to look inward first, to ask, am I emotionally available for what I say I want? Do I have enough self-respect to say no to what only feeds my ego? Do I have enough emotional intelligence to recognize when someone is not aligned with my peace? Love isn't about being rescued. It's about rising. It's about being whole enough to invite another whole person into your life without needing them to patch your wounds. Wholeness is not about perfection. It's about integration. It's about knowing your shadows, your wounds, your truth, and loving yourself through all of it. From this space, you stop chasing love, and instead, you become the space where love can land. The essence of spiritual awakening is learning that relationships are not destinations, they are reflections. And what they show you is who you are, what you're still healing, and what you're ready to receive. So if you want lasting love, don't look for someone to make you feel better. Look within. Do the work. Heal. Awaken. Respect yourself enough to become emotionally ready for the kind of love that doesn't drain, doesn't confuse, and doesn't hurt. Instead, it nourishes, elevates, and reflects back to you the truth that you were already enough. If you're still here, type, "I am whole within myself" in the comments. Your voice helps us build a space of healing and truth. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell for more insights on spiritual wisdom and Carl Jung's teachings. 8. Choose yourself first, and the right person will follow. When you stop choosing out of fear, desperation, or the ache of loneliness, and instead begin choosing from a place of truth, self-worth, and inner peace, you no longer seek validation outside yourself, because you've started building it within. This is the moment your energy shifts, your spirit rises, and you begin walking the path of true spiritual development. As your frequency elevates, you start attracting people who resonate with your healed and authentic self, not because you're trying to find someone to fill your emptiness, but because your wholeness becomes magnetic. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." And this is exactly what happens when you awaken to your own patterns. The people who once felt irresistible may begin to lose their grip on your soul, not because they've changed, but because you have. The right person doesn't feel like a war zone. They feel like home. They don't provoke chaos in your nervous system. They soothe it. And you'll only recognize this kind of love when you stop choosing from fear and start choosing from faith in yourself. This inner alignment begins with a powerful and honest question. Am I the right one for me? Because every relationship we attract is a mirror. If you constantly feel unchosen, abandoned, or misunderstood, it's not about blaming others. It's about asking what part of you still feels unworthy and why that part keeps leading the way. Spirituality teaches us that our external experiences reflect our internal beliefs. So when you notice patterns repeating heartbreaks, emotionally unavailable partners, relationships that drain instead of nourish, you must pause and reflect. What am I still trying to prove? And to whom? What does this person reveal about the beliefs I hold about myself? Are they showing me the parts I need to reclaim, love, or protect? This is not about self-blame. It's about spiritual awakening. It's about becoming so radically self-aware that you no longer accept love that costs you your peace. In this state, choosing yourself isn't just an act of self-love. It becomes an energetic declaration to the universe that you are ready for more. And when you stand in that truth, you begin to notice something miraculous. You're no longer magnetized to the chaos you once called passion. Instead, you crave stillness, presence, and depth. You stop performing for love and start receiving it effortlessly from those who see and honor your soul. And that's when the right person arrives, not as a savior, but as a mirror to your spiritual growth. They don't complete you, they meet you. So remember, when you finally choose yourself without hesitation, apology, or guilt, the energy around you shifts. The connections that no longer align will fall away, and the ones that do will find their way to you naturally. This is not wishful thinking, it's vibrational alignment. It's intelligence guided by spiritual wisdom. It's destiny meeting preparation. And it always begins with one courageous question. Am I truly choosing from love, or am I still choosing from fear? The answer will determine not just who follows, but who stays. 9. True love is calm, not chaotic. True love is never chaotic. It is calm, steady, and deeply grounding. When it's real, you won't feel the need to chase it, fix it, or force it into alignment. It arrives with a silent kind of certainty, one that speaks to your soul more than your fears. There is no begging for clarity, no confusion disguised as passion. Instead, there's a quiet peace that wraps around your heart and whispers, "You're safe here." Carl Jung once said, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. But the transformation of a destined bond isn't loud or destructive. It's soft, expansive, and liberating. You evolve not through pain, but through presence. You grow not by losing yourself, but by becoming more of who you truly are. In this kind of relationship, your soul is not asked to shrink for the sake of someone else's comfort. Your essence is not diluted. Your light is not dimmed. Instead, you're met with reverence. Your dreams are supported. Your spirit is held with care. This is what spiritual wisdom looks like in practice. It honors your individuality while nurturing the sacred connection you share. Spiritual intelligence and love understands that real connection is not about control, possession, or urgency. It's about mutual expansion. It's about finding someone who doesn't interrupt your path, but walks it with you gently, intentionally, and without fear. There is no pressure to perform or prove. You simply are, and that is enough. What so many mistake for love are often just unhealed trauma playing dress-up. Chaos is not a sign of chemistry, and drama is not evidence of depth. True love doesn't ignite your nervous system. It soothes it. It does not pull you away from your peace. It leads you back to it. Spiritual awakening allows you to see this clearly. It teaches you to recognize the difference between addiction to emotional highs and the calm resonance of alignment. When it's destiny, the love feels like home. Not because it's perfect, but because it's true. You're not left guessing, doubting, or shrinking. You're seen, you're heard, you're held, and more than anything, you are free to grow, free to expand, free to be who you are meant to be. So when love enters your life wrapped in peace instead of noise, respect instead of fear, expansion instead of control, don't question it. Don't run from it because it feels unfamiliar. Calm love is not boring love. It is elevated love. It is spiritually intelligent love. And the more you awaken to your worth, the more you will recognize this kind of love, not as rare, but as your birthright. Because destiny doesn't disrupt your soul, it aligns with it. Let's build a circle of calm, supportive love right here in the comments. If this message touched your heart, comment below. True love is calm, not chaotic. And here's something special. Every time you see someone else comment that, take a moment to like it or reply with something kind. It's a beautiful way to remind each other that peace is powerful. And if you believe in creating a space of love and wisdom together, comment 1. So I know how many beautiful souls are with us on this journey. Thank you for joining us today on Spiritual Wisdom. If this message resonated with you, remember, destiny always leaves clues. Sometimes it's a feeling, a quiet knowing, or a moment of synchronicity that confirms you're exactly where you're meant to be. If you've ever felt that mysterious pull towards someone or something, trust it. It may be more than coincidence. Stay curious, stay aligned, and stay open to the signs the universe places on your path. Don't forget to like this video. Share it with someone who needs to hear this. Subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom and tap the notification bell so you won't miss any of our upcoming soul-nourishing insights. Until next time, trust the process. It's leading you home. Carl Jung's shocking truth about addiction and the path to real healing. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Carl Jung. Addiction isn't just about substances or habits. It's often the symptom of a deeper hunger within the soul, a longing for meaning, connection, and wholeness. In today's video on spiritual wisdom, we'll uncover Jung's shocking truth about addiction and explore how real healing begins not with willpower alone, but with a journey inward to face what we've been avoiding. As you listen, I invite you to reflect. What are you truly seeking beneath the surface of your daily patterns? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your story might inspire someone else's breakthrough. 1. Addiction is not always obvious. Addiction is not always what people imagine. It is not only in the bottle, the pill, or the needle. It can hide in the way your thumb moves across a screen for the 9th time in a single minute. Not because you're searching for something meaningful, but because silence feels unbearable. It can be the endless cycle of just one more episode, until an entire night disappears into the glow of a screen. It can be the way your mood lifts only when a certain person's text arrives, giving you that small, fleeting hit of validation. Often, you are not chasing a high at all. You are running from a deep, untraceable low, one you can't quite put into words. Carl Jung, the Swiss psychologist who explored the unseen depths of the human psyche, would never treat addiction by focusing on the habit alone. He believed addiction was not the real problem. It was a symptom, a sign that the soul was wounded and searching for something it had lost. He would not begin by telling you to quit scrolling or stop drinking. Instead, he would ask what emptiness you were trying to fill, what pain you were trying to bury, what truth you are afraid to face. To Jung, every addiction is rooted in a spiritual hunger, a longing for wholeness and meaning that has been misplaced into compulsions. Until that hunger is met at its source, no amount of willpower will truly set you free. We live in a culture that treats symptoms, delete the app, pour the alcohol down the sink, throw away the cigarettes, and while these actions can help in the short term, they do not touch the root. The soul cannot be deceived. If the wound remains unhealed, the addiction will only shift into a different form, moving from one habit to another, like water finding a new channel. Real healing is not about becoming better in the eyes of others. It is about becoming whole, reclaiming the lost parts of yourself, and integrating them into the truth of who you are. It means turning toward the very feelings you've been avoiding, the grief, the fear, the memories, and understanding that they are not there to destroy you, but to guide you. Every moment spent numbing yourself is a moment you turn away from your own soul. Yet the pain you are trying so hard to escape is often the doorway to your freedom. As Jung said, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. Healing means facing that darkness directly, sitting with the discomfort and letting it speak. It is not a gentle path. It can feel like falling apart before you begin to come together, but it is the only path that leads to true freedom. Addiction, in its essence, is not about what you consume. It is about what consumes you. It is the silent battle between the false self you built to survive and the authentic self that longs to live. Freedom begins when you stop asking how to quit and start asking what your soul is truly starving for. When you feed that hunger with truth, love, and presence, the compulsion begins to loosen its grip. and even the most invisible chains will eventually break. Have you ever noticed the subtle addictions in your life? Those quiet habits that keep you distracted from what's really going on inside? If you have, share your experience in the comments so we can learn from one another. If not, comment, "I will pay attention," and let's begin this journey to real healing together. 2. Jung's core insight. Carl Jung's profound insight revealed that addiction is never the root problem. It is merely the visible symptom of something far deeper, a painful disconnection from the true self. This inner split, what Jung referred to as psychic splitting, often begins in childhood when authenticity carried a price. Perhaps the moments you spoke your truth were met with criticism, or when you expressed your feelings, you were told to toughen up and hide them. Maybe your dreams were dismissed as foolish, or your individuality was met with disapproval. Each time this happened, a message was imprinted in your mind. Certain parts of you were not safe to reveal. To survive, you learned to suppress those authentic parts and present only the version of yourself that others found acceptable. This mask brought safety, approval, and sometimes even love, but the cost was the abandonment of your own soul. And when the soul is denied, a void emerges, a void that often demands to be filled, sometimes in the form of addiction. In the modern world, this addiction is not limited to substances like alcohol or drugs. It appears in subtler, socially acceptable forms. It can be the constant compulsion to check your phone, scrolling endlessly through social media feeds as though searching for a piece of yourself in the approval of strangers. It can be the person who stays in a toxic relationship, not because they believe it's love, but because they fear facing the ache of solitude. It can be the overachiever who works late every night, not out of passion, but to escape the silence that forces them to confront their inner emptiness. It can be the late-night binge watcher who fears the stillness that might bring up old wounds. These are not simply bad habits. They are coping mechanisms, attempts to soothe the discomfort of a life lived behind a mask. Carl Jung understood that removing the addictive behavior without addressing its cause is like cutting weeds at the surface while leaving the roots untouched. The behavior will return in another form because the true wound, the absence of wholeness, remains unhealed. That's why someone might quit drinking only to become addicted to work, or step away from an unhealthy relationship only to repeat the same dynamic with a different person. Without reconnecting with the lost parts of ourselves, the cycle continues. Consider the colleague who buries themselves in projects long after office hours, not out of ambition, but because the tension at home feels unbearable. Or the friend who curates every moment for social media, chasing validation that temporarily fills a deeper void. On the surface, these behaviors may look different, but at their core, they are all born from the same hunger, the hunger to feel whole, seen, and safe in one's own skin. Jung would say that until we face this spiritual wound, no real healing can take root. True healing is not about finding a shinier, more convincing mask. It is about removing the mask altogether and meeting the raw, unfiltered truth of who you are. It is about turning toward the inner child who once had to hide for safety and letting them know they are free now. It is about listening to your needs without dismissing them, honoring your feelings without shame, and choosing to live according to what is real for you, even if it means losing the approval of others. This is not only psychological work, it is deeply spiritual work. For when you reclaim the abandoned pieces of yourself, you do more than overcome addiction. You restore the integrity of your soul. Addiction, then, is not your enemy. It is your messenger. The habit is not the disease. It is the signal that something within you is longing to be healed. The path to real freedom is not in taking away the crutch and pretending you can walk, but in strengthening the parts of you that once felt too broken to stand. And in the words of Carl Jung, when you live in alignment with your true self, you no longer need the false comforts that once kept you alive. You become whole, and in that wholeness, you discover a freedom that no addiction can ever replace. 3. Spiritual thirst. Carl Jung believed that addiction is rarely about the drug, the drink, or the habit. It is about a spiritual thirst so deep that the soul cries out for wholeness, for something true to fill the hollow spaces inside. This thirst cannot be satisfied by alcohol, pills, gambling, or the endless late-night scrolling through your phone. It is a hunger for meaning, for real connection, and for the lost parts of yourself you abandoned long ago. Jung once said, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul." Most addictions are not a pursuit of pleasure, but an escape from pain. You are not chasing a high. You are trying to outrun a low you may not even understand. One that often comes from years of emotional neglect, buried grief, or living a life that betrays your own nature. Addiction, in Jung's view, is the unconscious mind's desperate attempt to restore balance, to drag you toward the parts of yourself you've ignored. Yet you cannot heal what you refuse to face. Detoxing the body without healing the soul is like repainting a house whose foundation is crumbling. It may look fine for a moment, but it is still falling apart. The real work begins when you stop asking, "How do I quit?" and start asking, "What is my pain trying to tell me?" Imagine the man who works himself to exhaustion every week, then drowns his evenings in alcohol to unwind. On the surface, the problem is the drinking. In truth, the real wound is spiritual. He feels trapped in a life that does not align with his values, cut off from anything that brings his heart to life. The bottle is only a bandage. The wound lies deeper. Healing begins when he dares to face the silence he has avoided and reconnects with the lost parts of his soul. Jung's approach to addiction was not about attacking the symptom, but awakening the soul. Without addressing the root cause, the emptiness, the disconnection, the loss of spiritual alignment, recovery remains fragile. Viktor Frankl wrote, "Those who have a why to live can bear almost any how. Without that why, we look for substitutes for small, fleeting hits of pleasure to fill the void. True healing is found by answering the deeper call, slowing down enough to hear the voice within, seeking spiritual nourishment in nature, in art, in prayer, in meditation, in acts of service, anything that feeds the soul in ways no substance can. It is making peace with pain, not by drowning it, but by listening to it. The thing you fear most, turning towards your emptiness, is the doorway to the fullness you have been searching for all along. When you meet your shadow and hold your pain with compassion instead of running from it, the addiction begins to loosen its grip. Healing is not instant, and it is rarely comfortable, but it is the most important journey you will ever take. Because addiction is not a curse, it is a signal, a spiritual alarm that your soul is ready to come home. comment below, "I choose wholeness," to affirm your commitment to healing the inner emptiness and embracing your true spiritual path. 4. Dopamine and emotional suppression. Chronic suppression of true needs and emotions quietly erodes the vitality of the soul, draining the brain's dopamine reserves until life feels stripped of color and meaning. In this flattened emotional state, the mind becomes desperate for stimulation, searching for artificial relief through behaviors that offer quick, temporary highs. What begins as a harmless escape, a glass of wine after work, hours lost in social media, compulsive online shopping gradually transforms into a cycle of emptiness, craving, escape, shame, and back to emptiness. Over time, the brain learns to depend on these fleeting bursts of pleasure, not to seek joy, but to avoid the gnawing void within, a void that is not merely psychological, but deeply spiritual. This void often hides behind masks that society praises: discipline, productivity, resilience. You tell yourself you are strong because you endure discomfort, successful because you never stop working, in control because you suppress what hurts. Yet beneath the surface, the soul is starving. By silencing your emotional truth to maintain peace, meet expectations, or uphold an image, you teach your inner self that its needs are unworthy of attention. This silent abandonment deepens the hunger for escape, making the addictive cycle feel both inevitable and inescapable. True healing is not found in simply stopping the behavior, but in reclaiming the parts of yourself that were exiled in the process of survival. Carl Jung believed that addiction could not be cured through discipline alone. It required a reconnection to the soul. Turning toward your emotions rather than running from them allows dopamine to flow naturally again, not through artificial highs, but through authentic self-alignment. This is a process of sitting with discomfort, facing shame without letting it define you, and walking into the locked rooms of your own heart to bring back what you once abandoned. Addiction, then, is not only a prison, but also a message, a call from the soul that something vital has been neglected for far too long. The emptiness is not the enemy, but the doorway. By stepping into it with courage, you discover that what you were seeking in every escape was never outside of you. It was the forgotten wholeness of your own being, patiently waiting for your return. 5. Healing requires integration, not willpower. Carl Jung said that true healing is never about suppressing or overpowering your impulses. It is about bringing what lies hidden in the unconscious into the light of awareness, facing the shadow you have buried, and reclaiming the parts of yourself you have long abandoned. Willpower alone can make you quit for a while, but it cannot transform you because it does not address the root cause of the pain. Addictions, whether they are to alcohol, drugs, gambling, work, relationships, or even the endless scroll of a phone, are not the problem itself. They are the symptom, a signal that something inside you is unresolved. You might silence the craving for a season, but if you never look at the wound it is protecting, you will simply trade one addiction for another, living in the same cycle with a different disguise. It is like living in a house where certain rooms have been locked for years. You avoid them because of the memories they hold, but the dust and stale air in those rooms seep through the walls until the whole house feels heavy. Healing means unlocking those rooms, breathing new life into them, and letting every part of your inner home belong to you again. This is why so many people relapse or shift from one coping mechanism to another. A person may give up drinking, but never face the deep loneliness that drove them to it. Eventually, that emptiness will demand to be filled again, perhaps by overworking, binge watching, or seeking constant approval. In our modern world, we are told to fix ourselves with routines, motivational slogans, or productivity hacks. But often, these are just sophisticated ways of running from ourselves. Carl Jung warned that what we refuse to acknowledge does not disappear. It becomes the invisible force that shapes our thoughts, choices, and relationships. The overly cheerful friend masking despair. The high achiever driven by a fear of being unworthy. The influencer who shines online but feels hollow when the screen goes dark. All are examples of the shadow at work, quietly pulling the strings from beneath the surface. Real recovery is therefore a spiritual journey of integration. It is not about killing the part of you that seeks escape, but understanding what it has been trying to protect all along. It is about meeting the wounded inner child who learned to survive through avoidance or distraction and assuring them that it is now safe to feel, to grieve, to be seen. Integration means taking back every exiled piece of yourself until you stand whole and authentic, no longer fractured between who you are and who you pretend to be. This process will test you. It will demand that you sit with discomfort, face truths you have avoided, and let go of the false self you built for survival. But it is the only path that leads to freedom that lasts, because willpower may carry you through the beginning, but integration keeps you from going back. When you stop asking, "How can I resist this?" and start asking, "What is this trying to tell me about my soul?" you turn addiction from an enemy into a messenger. And when you finally listen, with courage and compassion, you discover that healing is not about becoming someone new. It is about remembering who you have been all along. Leave a like, subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss powerful insights like this. Type in the comments, "I choose to heal and reclaim my whole self," to affirm your journey toward true recovery and inner peace. 6. 3 core tools for healing. There are 3 core tools that, when embraced fully, can transform the way you approach addiction and open the door to deep spiritual healing. Shadow work is the first, and it is more than a mental exercise. It is an act of profound courage. It calls you to sit with the hidden, wounded, and rejected parts of yourself that you have tried to bury. Through journaling and honest self-reflection, you give voice to the stories you've silenced, the memories you've avoided, and the emotions you've denied. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." Shadow work is the process of taking back the pen from fate and writing your own story with awareness. It is walking into the forgotten rooms of your inner world and turning on the light, not to shame what you find, but to listen and integrate it. Every time you face the shadow, instead of numbing it, you reclaim a piece of your soul, bringing yourself one step closer to wholeness. Breathwork is the second tool, and it serves as a bridge between the conscious mind and the deep storehouse of memory and emotion held in the body. This is not just taking deep breaths, but a deliberate and rhythmic engagement with your life force. When you breathe consciously, you allow your nervous system to unwind, giving trapped emotions and unprocessed trauma a safe passage to release. The body remembers everything. The heartbreaks you thought you forgot, the fear you pushed down, the grief you didn't know how to carry, and the breath gently loosens these knots. In moments of focused breathing, many people find themselves touched by insights, visions, and an unmistakable sense of spiritual connection. It is as if each breath becomes a sacred key, unlocking the door to wisdom and freedom. Addiction thrives in disconnection, and breath work dissolves that distance, rooting you fully in the here and now. Symbolic ritual is the third tool, and it speaks in the language of the soul. Ritual bypasses the intellect and reaches the deeper layers of your being, where true transformation happens. This can be as simple as lighting a candle and allowing its flame to remind you of the eternal spark within, or writing a heartfelt letter to the version of yourself trapped in addiction, not with judgment, but with compassion, forgiveness, and release. Ritual works because the soul understands symbols in a way the rational mind cannot. Carl Jung believed that healing often emerges when we reconnect with the archetypal and symbolic dimensions of life, for they awaken dormant aspects of ourselves that routine life neglects. When you perform a ritual with intention, you create sacred space where healing is not merely a concept, but an embodied experience you can feel in your bones. When shadow work, breath work, and symbolic ritual are woven together, they form a path that does not just treat addiction symptoms, but addresses its roots. Addiction is rarely only about the substance or the habit. It is a messenger, pointing toward an inner fracture, a spiritual disconnection, a call from the deepest part of you to return home. Shadow work helps you face and reclaim what you have hidden. Breath work helps you release what has been stored away. And ritual helps you speak directly to the soul, restoring the bond between who you are and who you were meant to be. In walking this path, you begin to understand that healing is not about becoming someone new. It is about remembering and returning to the wholeness that was always within you. As we explore these three core tools for healing shadow work, breath work, and symbolic ritual, let this be your moment to commit to your own transformation. Your presence here shows your soul's readiness to reclaim its wholeness. Comment below. I choose to heal my soul as a declaration of your journey toward real freedom. Now, let's walk together toward the next chapter of your healing. 7. Individuation. Becoming whole. Healing is not about returning to who you were before the pain or the addiction. It is about becoming whole, stepping into a truer version of yourself that your soul has always been calling you toward. To walk this path means creating a life that feeds your soul, not just your schedule. It is no longer about filling every hour with tasks, noise, or distractions to keep from facing yourself, but about intentionally shaping your days around what truly nourishes you at the deepest level. This could be moments of stillness in nature, deep conversations with people who see you, creative work that stirs your spirit, or spiritual practices that bring you into connection with something greater than yourself. When you live in a way that honors your truth, life stops feeling like something you need to escape from and begins to feel like something you are grateful to be in. It also means replacing stimulation with meaning. Addiction often works by hijacking the brain with a loop of short-lived dopamine hits, giving the illusion of satisfaction while leaving you emptier than before. The high becomes less about pleasure and more about avoiding discomfort. True healing requires breaking that loop and finding fulfillment in what is slow, steady, and real building skills. Investing in relationships, aligning your work with your values, and engaging in pursuits that enrich your inner world. These may not deliver an immediate rush, but they bring a lasting peace that continues to grow. Meaning feeds the soul in a way that stimulation never can, and over time, the craving for quick fixes fades in the light of deeper purpose. A vital part of this journey is learning to see relapse not as failure, but as information. Healing does not move in a straight line, it spirals. You may face familiar challenges again, but each time with greater awareness and more tools than before. Relapse becomes a mirror, reflecting the places where your soul still feels unseen, unheard, or unloved. Instead of drowning in shame, you can meet these moments with curiosity, asking what needs attention, what boundaries need to be strengthened, or what inner wounds still need care. This shift transforms setbacks into stepping stones, each one moving you toward integration rather than away from it. To embrace individuation is to accept that the goal is not perfection, but wholeness. It is gathering the lost, wounded, and hidden parts of yourself and bringing them home with compassion. It is stepping out of the roles you once played for survival and living in the freedom of authenticity. It is the slow, sacred work of becoming someone who no longer wears a mask, no longer lives in a cage, no longer hides from the truth of who they are. And in this becoming, you do not simply recover, you awaken. You are no longer the person you were before addiction, nor are you defined by it. You are the person your soul has been shaping you to be all along. If this journey into individuation has sparked something in you, take the next step toward becoming your truest self. Comment below, "I choose wholeness," to affirm your path. Your voice not only strengthens your commitment, but also inspires others walking this road of real healing. 8. The transformation. Carl Jung taught that addiction is rarely the core problem. It is the echo of something far deeper, a symptom of the soul's hunger for wholeness. It's the emptiness left when parts of yourself were abandoned, your shadow with its hidden truths, your inner child with its innocence, your artist with its passion, your dreamer with its hope, your spiritual seeker with its longing. These are the fragments you left behind in moments of shame, heartbreak, or rejection, and the void they create becomes unbearable. You try to fill it with alcohol, work, endless scrolling, toxic relationships, or any distraction that numbs the silence. But Jung believed that this emptiness, as painful as it is, can become the very doorway to transformation if you are willing to reclaim every part of yourself that you once exiled. I once knew a man named Daniel who seemed to have everything society admires: a successful career, a beautiful apartment, and a wide circle of friends. But when the noise of the day faded, he couldn't bear being alone with himself. He filled the quiet with late nights, constant social media, and an endless chase for connection that never satisfied him. The turning point came when he realized he had lost the ability to recognize his own reflection, not just in the mirror, but in his life. That was when the real work began. Instead of simply quitting the behaviors that numbed him, he started asking the questions Jung would demand. Who am I beneath the masks? What parts of me have I hidden because they didn't seem acceptable? What is my soul truly yearning for? Slowly, he began to welcome back the painter who once saw beauty in small things, the curious thinker who questioned life's patterns, the child who laughed without fear. This is the essence of transformation, not becoming someone else, but becoming whole again. It is the courageous act of gathering your shadow, your inner child, your artist, your dreamer, and your seeker into one integrated life. Jung called this individuation, the process of uniting all aspects of the self into harmony. It is rarely clean or comfortable. It requires facing pain you've buried, truths you've avoided, and emotions you've feared. But as you do, the chains of addiction fall away, not because you forced them to, but because you no longer need them. Wholeness makes the addiction obsolete. Addiction, then, can be the catalyst that forces you to stop living in fragments and start living as your full self. The shadow becomes your strength, the inner child your joy, the dreamer your vision, and the seeker your guide. When you weave them all together, you not only find liberation, you rediscover the life that was waiting for you all along. And as Carl Jung would say, that is the path to real healing, to reclaim what was lost, to live without masks, and to let your soul finally come home. And so, the real healing journey is not just about breaking free from the substance or the habit. It's about returning to the deeper truth of who you are, the part of you that's been calling out beneath the noise, waiting to be heard. As Carl Jung taught, addiction is not the enemy, it is the messenger, pointing us toward the wounds our soul longs to heal. If this message spoke to you, let it be the start of your own path to wholeness. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our upcoming videos filled with insight, guidance, and inspiration for your spiritual journey.